Cup check. And apparently, we've got a series. The Carolina Hurricanes win 4-3 in overtime over the Vegas Golden Knights, tying up the 2026 Stanley Cup Final at a game apiece. What on earth do you take away from this one? To me, the first period was eerily similar to the first period from game one in terms of rate of play. The difference is Nikolai Ehlers didn't score 2 goals and Carolina didn't come out of the period with a lead. In fact, here's a stat for you that I just came up with my brain. Now, both teams have blown a 2-0 lead in this series, and we've only played 2 games. Just like in the first period of game 1, Carolina is controlling the rate of play for the most part through most of the first period. Controlling the rate of play in that they have the puck a lot more than Vegas does. But Vegas looked very patient, very calm, very poised. Because even though Carolina had more of the puck, at the end of the day, they weren't getting much done with it. Vegas was standing them up at the blue line, and if Carolina did find a way to get into the zone, they were just on the perimeter. Vegas is getting outshot 5-1, 6-1. They don't panic. Late-ish in the period, the puck is in Vegas' zone, and Marner just no-look backhand yeets the thing, which we have seen him do in the playoffs before, to different results. But there's an epic puck battle. Give me that for it. Brett Howden comes up with it. Second shot of the game beats Freddie Anderson. And maybe this is unfair because it's a partial break. Make a save. Make a save. Make a save. That is what Freddie Anderson had done up to that point in that game, because that's all he had to do was make one save. I know it's a partial break. You're allowed to stop those. I don't like how it beat Freddie. And even though you had more shots than Vegas, this time you're heading into first intermission down. Second period was when I was like, oh, you know what? Oh, Carolina might get swept. Because just like the second period in game 1, this is where Vegas takes back ground. Except in this one, they were the ones leading. And it's Brett Howden bloody again. Once again, you'd love a save, but I think it's a little more unreasonable on this one. He just stretches Freddie out. Freddie tries to get the toe on it. It doesn't work. And with that goal, Brett Howden scores his 13th of the playoffs and has more goals in the playoffs than he did in the regular season in 40 fewer games. Producer Drew told me during the stream that Brett Howden actually moved into second in Conn Smythe odds after that goal. I don't know what it is now after the game. To me, if Vegas wins the cup, it's going to be Marner pretty much no matter what. We sort of saw this a little bit in last year's playoffs. Sam Bennett was the Florida Panthers' best player pretty much the whole way through, or maybe the most productive. Marchand had a crazy Stanley Cup final, and everyone's like, oh, maybe it's going to be Brad, and he came close. But at the end of the day, Bennett won. Third period comes, we're halfway through the frame, and Carolina's still down 2-0. And it seems like they're never going to score. And then I think about it. The thing that made me think about it was Dylan Coghlan, who's a great story on the Vegas Golden Knights, blocking a shot that basically saved a goal. And if you watch that game closely enough, you're going, Steve, which one exactly? It felt like Carolina was generating nothing. It felt like they were getting nothing done. And there was a single third pairing defenseman on the Vegas Golden Knights who saved 2 goals on his own. Now, here's what Carolina needs, and here's what they're going to get. Carolina's strength isn't overwhelming brand name. It isn't overwhelming stardom from their players. It's teamwork. They play an incredible team game. There's a reason Rod Brind'Amour has a reputation that he does. The Hurricanes are, and have been for a number of years, extremely well coached. And they are a team that can play above the sum of their parts. But it's the Stanley Cup Final, and sometimes you need someone to just go, Rah! You need someone to take over a game. You need someone to say, fine, I'll do it myself. Offensive zone draw for Carolina. They lose the faceoff. Oh, they blew it! Rasmus Andersson has the puck behind his net. You thought! Stankoven says, give me that! Wraps it around, tucks it in, and magically the Hurricanes are on the board. It is the Stanley Cup playoffs after all, and a team that was magically, they may never lose a game, goes to, they may never score again, but they did score again. Will it go to their legs? Let's have a gander. Less than 2.5 minutes later, Mark Jankowski, fourth line center, he's got a lane and he rips it bar down. Are you kidding me? That building's got no roof. And that they are playing, it better not rain in game 5. I tell you that much, because there's no more roof left in Raleigh. You've heard of ruthless, they are now roofless. And somehow, some way, this game is tied very temporarily. Because with 5 minutes to go in the third, one of the most unbelievable sequences that we've seen in recent memory in the Cup Final happens. Ivan Barbashev steals it off of Jacob Slavin. Frederick Anderson makes a massive save. Barbashev stays with it. He wraps it around. Another massive save with the paddle by Frederick Anderson. And then it's a whistle. It's a whistle, but the puck is in the net. No, but the whistle went. No, the whistle went. And he's waving like this. It's no goal. And then you watch the replay. That might be a goal. Oh, well, Freddie covered it. I don't know that he did. Oh, it was goalie interference. I don't know that it was. But the call on the ice is no goal, and John Tortorella chooses to challenge this. Now, this is a very calculated challenge. Think about it. If you watch this, you were pretty convinced this had a good chance to count. If you're Vegas, you're risking taking a penalty, but if you're Vegas, you believe in your penalty kill. And even more so, you don't believe in Carolina's power play. They can't get a shot on goal, much less a goal. Well, guess what? To my surprise, and a lot of surprise out there, this is ruled no goal. And it's Carolina to the power play. Hilariously, this power play that could barely tie their skates the whole series leading up to this, and in the previous series, basically all playoffs long, scores like immediately. Shane Gostisbehere puts it on. Jordan Staal with the tip, and it's the captain, no less. And with less than 5 minutes to go in this game, Carolina has their first lead. Can Carolina shut it down? Can they be the boa constrictor that we all know they can be? No. Jackson Blake takes an interference call on Ivan Barbashev, and Vegas's power play goes to work. Vegas chooses not to go 6-on-4. There's so little time left in the game. I thought for sure they'd go 6-on-4, if not for the entire power play. I mean, as soon as you get possession in the Carolina zone, how don't you go 6-on-4? You would be totally justified. No one would judge you for that. But no, they wait until there's 10 seconds left in the thing. They do not convert until they convert. Back to even strength, but technically 6-on-5. Mitch Marner in the high slot. He throws it on, it pings around, and Mark Stone does not have stone hands. He ties it. This is a thriller. Both games in this series began with, this might be a blowout, and ended epically. And this game is now going to overtime, and wouldn't you know it? 3 minutes and 17 seconds in, I feel like whenever there's a power play in a playoff overtime, it either happens early or it doesn't happen till like double OT. Hurdle trips Jordan Staal. It's a Carolina power play again. It's like they figured it out all at once.
Aho to Gostisbehere. Gostisbehere, cross-ice shot, they score! Carolina has won it in overtime. Seth Jarvis shows up in a big moment, and Carolina has tied this series in a thriller in game 2. Jarvis's boys are losing their minds in the crowd. And if the Hurricanes have activated Seth Jarvis, this is going to be a very interesting Stanley Cup Final indeed.
You know, when we talk about Carolina not having star power, I'm sure there's a few players that take exception to it. And I got to imagine Seth Jarvis is one of them. He's had an incredible season. He's had a few incredible seasons. He was on the four-nation face-off team and then the Olympic team for Canada. How much more superstar do I got to be? Well, Aho, another player who's needed to pick up his socks, I thought he looked better and better and better as this game went on. He sends it to Shane Gostisbehere. Gostisbehere over to Jarvis, and he obliterates that puck and throws the monkey off his back. Because he scores, Carolina scores on back-to-back power plays in this economy, and it is a tied Stanley Cup Final heading to Vegas for game 3. Now, you gotta wonder, well, you have to give Carolina credit. Obviously, you gotta give Carolina credit. But you gotta wonder, not just the review, and not just, oh, what if this was called a goal? Or what if Vegas doesn't take that delay of game penalty? What if Braden McNabb was able to play the majority of this game? Because he wasn't. In the first period of this game, McNabb took a slap shot to the face, and it looked like it hit him square in the nose. The puck was even like kind of flipping when it's gruesome to watch. Does not return to the game and supposedly went to hospital during the game. I've broken my nose before. Never broken it from a NHL slap shot, so I think I'll sit this one out. My guess is it's not as simple as, just throw a cage on me. It's, they're worried about facial fractures is my guess. So many little bones in there. It was gruesome. It's crazy he skated off on his own. But you gotta wonder if McNabb's in there, such a key defensive defenseman for the Vegas Golden Knights, would this game have gone differently? Well, it's hockey. If ifs and buts, candy and nuts, and all that. Questions. Should the refs just explain what the call is themselves rather than just leaking stuff to insiders after the game? I think the NHL has an enormous transparency problem. I go back to this, and Vegas Golden Knights fans, you'll actually remember this. So Zach Whitecloud blows up Matthew Nyes. It was a game against Toronto. I think it was in Toronto. That one was in Toronto. And I remember saying and yelling on the podcast, I'm open to this not being a penalty or a suspension, but I'd like it explained why. The NHL only does videos when a guy's getting suspended. I think this is a great example of an incident that could use a video as an explainer for here's why this is a legal play. And they did it. And it was great. It was a great explainer. Whether you agreed with it or not, you knew where the league stood on hits like that. And they've never done it ever again. The NBA has the 2-minute report. The NBA will, during breaks in play, add or take away points based on where your feetsies were for a 2 or a 3-pointer. Baseball's now got the challenge and everything. But NHL referees, meanwhile, they're allowed to appear in commercials and everything when they're yucking it up. But when you have a question for them after the game, or you'd like an explanation from them after the game, they're not there. Sometimes the league will be like, hey, based on this review, and they'll release a statement. I understand that. Man, I'm not even saying you got to do this on a Wednesday in December, but it would be nice during the Stanley Cup Final to be able to, even a prepared statement, a couple paragraphs on the game from the officiating crew. Here's what we saw out there. The transparency, I think, would go a long way with the audience. But they're just not willing to do that. Do you stick with Freddie or move to Bussy? Freddie did make some good saves in this game. I was unsure about him at the beginning. At this point, you're riding Freddie. If he gets completely blown up early in game 3, you go to Bussy. But unless Bussy's spectacular, I think you got to go right back to Freddie for game 4. Since it's always somehow about the Leafs, do the Leafs regret that Marleau trade yet? Yeah, so the Leafs tied a first-round pick to Patrick Marleau to get rid of his cap hit, and they gave him to the Carolina Hurricanes, and that first-round pick turned into Seth Jarvis. And to that I would say, yeah, the Leafs regret a lot, and they should regret a lot. They got rid of Marleau's cap hit in the hopes that they would make their team better and more of a contender. And that violently didn't happen. And they gave, not a divisional rival, but a conference rival in Carolina, an Olympian. That be bad. Can you talk about momentum? Does it belong to Vegas because they played an overall excellent game, or to the Hurricanes because of the comeback and OT win? I think that's a really good question. To me, it's clearly Carolina. The momentum sticks to whoever won. Vegas could have outshot Carolina 50-3, and if Carolina's the team that wins, Carolina's the team that feels good. But even though I think Vegas did play an excellent game, at the end of the day, the shots are 26-26. Aho, who has needed to be a little better, he was a factor. Stankoven, who's been a factor all playoffs long, he was a factor. Shane Gostisbehere kind of made the mistake that ended up costing Carolina in game 1. He was a massive factor on getting the power play back on track. And Seth Jarvis, who needs to be huge on the hugest stage of them all, he was great. Your captain scored. Your depth fourth line center scored. Freddie made big saves when he needed to, What isn't there to like for Carolina? They're feeling really, really good heading to Vegas, even though ultimately, through the first 2 games, they technically lost home ice advantage. Really, I think the correct answer is Game 3 is a new game. And this series is a brand new series. It's now best of 5. And this series that was supposed to be boring has been anything but. By the way, yes, between the streams and the podcast and these videos and allergies, my voice is real weird and different. I got a few comments. Someone said, did Steve lose his voice mid-podcast? And boy, you should hear the SDP VIP that just went up that we recorded after that. I kind of have fun with it. I like having fun with it because, like, everyone does their Heath Ledger Joker like this, but he's got a real rasp to him as well. And I usually can't do this. Oh. I thought my jokes were bad. If I could talk like this all the time, I would. But I don't smoke. So I think that's the only way. Give me a bunch of quotes you would like to say in my silly, stupid voice that I may only have for the next few days. But my friends, it's a 1-1 series. Heading back to Vegas for the 3rd time in their young franchise's history. It's unbelievable. For now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. I'll stop.